Good morning, whoever's up early. It's just after 5. Oh, here I am. I'm just gonna maybe, if my lighter is here, I'm gonna light some candles. It's a chilly one so far. It may get warmer. Oh yeah, that helps for the camera. There. Yeah. Doesn't really serve to light up my face, but it does give a bit of a background, which helps. Whew. Still waking up. I heard the rooster crow down the road. It's kind of nice. It's nice inside my sleeping bag, I tell you. Whew. But this is my second night that I've spent in my trailer. So this is the bedroom, which I can't really show you around at the moment. Although my bit of shed, I don't know how much more light, but it might brighten things a little bit. And maybe even this one. I actually have window shades, curtains. Oh, there. How can I sit up in here without catching my hair on fire or something? Put these cushions behind me. That's not too bad. This flashlight in my face though is not the best. Where can I could have it from here. But I didn't want to hold it because my arm would get kind of tired after a while. And I don't know if I could make it stay here. It would be great. Oh, there we go. Well, how's that? That's kind of sort of out of my eyes, but that's not any good. I wish these cameras could work in darker environments. It would be a bit easier, but they don't, and that's okay. Oh man. Look. I don't know if you can see it. No, the camera doesn't catch it. Well, yes, there is. I don't know how to. It's weird. Works in reality. It's all the condensation coming out of my mouth. Looks like smoke. Oh. Well, I really do. I really do, I have to say, enjoy having a bedroom with no bugs in it. And because it has windows as well, it muffles a little bit of sound. so that just softens things a bit, makes it a bit easier to sleep. Um, you know, it. This is. I said I would be as transparent as I could be, to really share, and I think that's the only way real sharing can happen. Because if you're customizing something and manicuring it, the message is not 100% honest and authentic, and therefore the message doesn't, if whatever the message is, it doesn't come through. And I'm kind of, the message, when I say the message, I guess what came to me anyways, I'm just going to say what came to me. The message is not so much my conscious message. Um, Words are still waking up, brain there, but there is my message, and then hopefully that becomes a launching pad for the message that's maybe my soul's message, or the infinite, or God's message, or however you want to put it. But gradually, as my intended message is kept as honest and authentic as possible, I intend and believe possibly there will be a sense or an aspect of the message which goes beyond me. And as long as I can stay honest, that message will come through, I believe. Or that's my intention. I don't know. But anyway, so I've definitely had a little bit of I mean, it's been difficult. Don't get me wrong. It's been difficult all the time. But I don't know. You kind of, or I kind of ride on the intensity, and I don't know. I surprised myself. I actually felt like I did better than I thought I could do. I mean, it was a lot of work for me to do, and thank you everyone that came to help at various times, like to move some furniture or something. But nonetheless, that help, I would say, prevented me from absolutely losing it, hitting the maximum way too soon. So I thank you from the depths of my heart. I thank all the people who donated money to the crowdfunder for Raven to get her medicines. I do feel loved. It's difficult for me sometimes to feel loved. It's really odd. I don't know where that comes from. I think it's a childhood thing. But anyways, my emotions, my emotional self, my vulnerable self has been stepping forward just in the last few days. And that's the most difficult one, I find, because it's so easy to just try and clamp it up and you know, pull up your britches kind of thing, and try to ignore it, suppress it. And I'm not trying to indulge in it either, but I think it's important to at least acknowledge that, I don't know, child within me, I guess. It needs a short while to express itself, and I need to show that part of myself that I love it, and that I'm not just pushing it into the background, that all parts of me are to move forward as a whole being into this new part of my life. And I don't know, something hit a soft spot, sweet spot, whatever, and or just I hit a maximum. It was just, wow, so many things at once that I had to make these executive decisions on. You know, and there's always, this is the part I always find the most difficult. There's always something that isn't the way it should be. Like you buy something, for example, and it's broken, or you buy it and it doesn't fully work, and then you're like, oh God, one more thing I gotta do. That kind of experience. I'm sure everyone's had that experience many times, and it's when you have a lot of stuff on your plate and things like that happen, and you just feel like, if others had the integrity around the world, maybe it wouldn't have to be as difficult when an extra thing is just thrown on, when, the straw that breaks the camel's back kind of theory. But, and also there are situations like that where it's not lack of integrity, it's something you just got missed. And, when you're selling a million things, it can happen. And then it's just a matter of when the person comes back and presents the situation, which I will do, then it's up to that company to show their integrity and take care of you. So the weird is like I'm dreading that I have to call up the company that sold me this trailer and tell them about these the 4 supports that are in each corner that use a little jack thing, a little windy thing to roll down like a jack, and it supports the trailer other than the wheels, so it doesn't feel like you're in a truck. It stabilizes it. Maybe they're called stabilizers, I don't know. But when Chris and I were rolling them down by hand, we didn't bother with the drill. It was actually very easy to roll them down. I noticed that at the back, one of them was just leaning a little bit forward, and I noticed then I started to really look and scrutinize, and I noticed the other one at the back looked like it was a little bit back, but maybe it was straight and the other one, and it just made it look that way. But anyway, something wasn't 100% right, and I thought, oh, hold on, Chris, some reason this looks like it's off. I don't know, is it? And he says, oh, I don't think it's off. Maybe it's supposed to be that way. Maybe they're supposed to, but I'm a very detail-oriented person, so I started to, not obsess, but I started to really dig in and wonder. Like I thought about something else that we're working on, then I went back to that and went, okay, hold on, this is bothering me still. And so I looked really carefully at them, and they're kind of it's hard to they have sort of a oh fuck, if I can aim this at my hand. Frig. Well, it's like a diamond shape. These things are like 2 sides. If I had my other hand up a frig, not happening. Anyways, there are if I can do this, there are 2 sides, and they're like this, and then you crank it and slowly it opens up, and the bottom, my 2 thumbs would be the foot, so it stretches out till it stabilizes in each of the 4 corners the trailer. So I'm looking at the stabilizer apparatus or bars, the 2 top bars, and then there's the 2 bottom bars that converge and have the foot. So I'm looking at the 2 top ones, and I can see that they have like a slight buckled outness in the metal, just a little bit. And I'm like, fuck, of course, that's what it is. They're bent at the back. And I looked at the front ones, and they're not bent, or at least not anywhere where I can see it. So not enough to be anything. But for sure, the back ones have this little bend. And I thought, oh, well, it's probably nothing. It's probably fine. It's just that it's bent, and it'll never bend more. And then I thought, like, how would that happen? And I thought, well, heavy people bouncing around in the back, maybe, heavy load, sitting on a corner, maybe, whatever it would be, it would have to be some extra weight on that area. And then I thought, well, whatever reason, it's there. But what I don't want is to just push it off and be intimidated to be a bother. And I thought, no, I'm a good customer. I just bought this thing outright, and I shouldn't need to even slightly feel intimidated, or when I call, feel like I'm a troublemaker or something. It's a horrible inner thing, and a lot of people don't have that mechanism. I kind of live with it. I'm working on it. I've been working on it all my life. I guess my best knowledge to date would be that it mostly comes from childhood imprints, and then possibly gets kind of built upon, either take softened and eliminated over time, or built up and strengthened over time, depending on your life experiences and the work you do on yourself. Done a lot of work on myself, but I still do have little things that can be triggered when I'm under a lot of pressure. And definitely my stuff is up. But that's an opportunity when your stuff is up. Rather than my past, when my stuff would be up, I have an anxiety attack or something, that'd be really up in my face. And I would just, I was overwhelmed. I couldn't deal. I didn't know what was happening. My first panic attack, I remember, at least the first time I was aware of it, I was looking at a billboard. We were driving by somewhere downtown, and there's nothing about the billboard, nothing at all. Like, it was just, I just noticed that all of a sudden the words on the billboard just agitated me in an odd way, like suddenly. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I only knew when I looked back on it that that was actually part of what was developing. And I started to lose sleep. Like my mind would race at night, especially as soon as the lights would go out, as soon as the quietness, my mind couldn't quieten. It would go and tense up and think too many thoughts, and they're always worrying thoughts, always negative thoughts. I still don't fully understand that aspect of the mind. Like, if I could, now this is just in an episode, just to be clear, when I started having panic attacks, and that was 30 years ago, around the time when I started doing, or after I started doing tattoo conventions, traveling a lot. And so once again, pushing myself to a maximum. And of course, when I was younger, I pushed myself even further because I didn't know what my limits were. I just felt like I needed to prove myself. So I did a lot of traveling to England, especially, some to the States. I usually did 2 or 3 in conventions, tattoo conventions in the US, and about 12, for anywhere from 10 to 14 in Europe in a year. And then 1 or 2, usually 1, like a Toronto convention, or I did 1, or I went to 1 in Montreal once, but I never worked it. And at the time, it was such an exciting thing, and I win awards, trophies, and it felt really good, and I felt like I was being validated and supported, and all my hard work. And then I started getting these panic attacks, and it was really hard to deal with. But anyways, I don't want to go too much into that. That's sometime, if I need to, some part of a story and it's necessary, I'll go into some aspect of it. But it's really not that important, I don't think. But anyways, that lasted, and me dealing with these panic attacks, and it was debilitating. It was really, really, really difficult. Like, not sleeping, complete insomnia, which then intensified my daily situation. I felt like a wild rat in a cage. My nerves were just shot, and I had so much energy. I had to walk, or go to the gym, or I just had to like get on a treadmill and run. It's almost like some part of me wanted to get away, as far away from an invisible source of anguish. And at first I thought, I was looking up things like schizophrenia and stuff. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. And I would have to have these intense emotions that would just overpower everything. Extremely overwhelming. And I didn't know what was happening. And I thought I was really definitely losing it. But anyways, over time, and I booked some sessions with a therapist that someone recommended, a client recommended. And eventually made sense, at least, of that generally I was having panic attacks through the therapist and the help of the therapist. But one thing that came to mind, and I still believe this was an interesting insight, because I would get these just floods of intense emotions, which I called a panic attack. But if you like, that's just a catchphrase, right? Like, what was going on? Well, just had this flood of intense emotions that were all difficult ones, like fear and anxiety, and it was very, very, very difficult. And yet I was, otherwise kind of in a normal world, and like my clients were coming, business was happening. Oh, I did have, around that time was a big pivotal time, going to conventions, and that I brought back a female piercer from Germany who, among everyone there, they did a different piercing method. And I said to them, well, like, what is it that's different? They said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, in Canada and the US, we do this. They take these veterinary needles, cut them off of the little attachment that goes into the syringe, and then file them down the little cut edge, and then put them in the sterilizer and use those. And they said, oh, the old way. We used to do that once. I'm like, well, what is it that makes it so different? Like, I can see, look, people are in less pain. It's smoother, quicker. They said, well, we use these cannula needles that are used for like intravenous type of thing. They slide in really, really easy. They have this little kind of a Teflon sheath that goes in over the needle so it doesn't stick on the skin and snag. And then you just pull the needle out, leave the Teflon sheath in, and that can bend with the jewelry. And I'm like, oh my God, what a breakthrough. Holy shit. So I brought Fabiola back to teach. The piercer that was working for me we were having a lot of trouble working together. It was just personal stuff between us. And so I was coming close to getting my own studio. I'm trying to be the better person. It's like, someone's got to leave, or else we're going to tear each other to shreds. So I found a place, and we're moving out, and got another piercer, and Fabiola taught her. That was Maribel. And then we opened up a piercing school, and we taught what we called the European piercing method. Urban Primitive, it's interesting. We really have been spearheading a lot of stuff in our area, like in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We had such an influence over the many, many years that we existed. Inspiring people, presenting new perspectives, new ideas in piercing and tattooing. Like, the whole idea of bringing spirituality into it was so new to every scene that had anything to do with tattooing and piercing. We sort of, I can't say we broke in, but we were very good at fitting into the S&M scene. And they did, like, would go and get piercings for their slave or something. They do reenactments, and some would be the master, some would be the slave. Most people know a little bit about it. And we saw that, this could go, and for some people it did go beyond fetish. This could have therapeutic content potential. And I think I'm going off on a tangent, of course. Yeah, maybe I won't say too much, only because it's the whole, I don't know. I'm still waking up. So this is a waking up story. So anyways, yeah, we brought spirituality, infused these different scenes and movements and things with a form of spirituality. And I got largely inspired when I was out west, and I went to San Francisco. And if anyone's aware of a book called Research Magazine, and they would each, I don't know, month, they'd put out something different. And they put out this one on called Modern Primitives. And basically people, in essence, were taking ancient and less ancient, but practices from tribes, practices from ancient civilizations, practices that were still existing, say in India, things that involve pain, but they involve transcending pain. And you could really say that meditation involves pain, because it can get excruciating sitting up for hours. So in some ways it's very similar elements, but it basically takes something, in this case a pain, a sensation that in some ways you transcend, in some ways it pushes you to a place where you launch maybe as well. But anyways, we saw these potentials, and we got very inspired by many people around the world, but especially Jim and Drew and Fakir at Gauntlet, that I went to in San Francisco to get my first piercings. And I don't know, I was just really blown away by their boldness to step out and present such a different approach to something that was, more ancient. But I believe a lot of these ancient things and indigenous practices are, there are the personal aspects to different groups and tribes and customs, but then there's the essence, I would say, that I believed and still believe is the essence of who we are. And there were methods that, if slightly adapted to our society, I felt might have potential for healing and catharsis. And sort of excorrigia, which means to break the fetters. So to break previous bonds, bindings that hold you back within yourself. So now my tangent is actually coming back around and knitting in with what I was saying before. So that actually worked. So this is where, more or less, before that, but it's kind of around the time where the big emphasis that Urban Primitive worked in and delved into and explored and expanded and stuff was this all this potential for healing with the body. And it always seemed, you read anything about spirituality, still, quite often there are systems that kind of deny the body. It's like, oh, well, when we die, we'll go somewhere else, but the body is just this thing that rots away. So really don't pay too much attention to it. And so there's a lot of denial of the body in that sense in different spiritual traditions. But I felt that the body and the soul were one, and that the body was a physical manifestation while we're here of the soul. And therefore, I felt that if you worked with the body in the right way, I mean, diet, right? You have a good diet and you breathe the right air and stuff, it can really help you. Submerge yourself in the forest, walk on the ground with bare feet, all these things. We all know that certain environments and experiences can uplift us so amazingly when we're down. So that's kind of the budding of my, before these events I'm talking about, but this is the budding in process of my whole healing practice. My whole soul print practice came from this. It was from very real, raw experiences and inviting others to join us. We had events, Urban Primitive. We spent a lot of money, but we didn't spend a lot of money on ourselves so much as we spent a lot of money on events and things that just meant everything to us. So it was spending it on ourselves in that sense. But we really wanted to bring people, show people that there's this amazing avenue or portal that you can take to self-healing, to helping others heal, to group events with healings. Urban Primitive at the time, for a long time, was on Church Street, where no other tattoo artist at that time would dare go because everyone was afraid of AIDS, and tattooing was, blood related and stuff. And I learned a lot from the community that I grew to love, and I still love. So much talent, and especially at that time when things were opening up. And they were very receptive to what we were doing as well, and the straight community as well. But we kind of had these two communities. We had three. We had a community of the S&Mers that we were enticing with these ideas of spirituality, and we helped start like S&M 101s and things like that with educational, like people on the panel, like doctors, and brought in all kinds of people. But we also had another scene that overlapped, but there were different people in it that wouldn't even know about the S&M thing. And we would have more like drum circles. And Rikesh, oh, it's horrible, as years go on. I think it was Ritesh Das or something. I can see him. But anyways, when we were at Spadina and Adelaide in a building there above Montreal Bank of Montreal, we were on the third floor, I think, or the second. No, we were on the second floor. And we had 6,000 square feet of space, which blew us away that we could even have that. Although it didn't last, I think, about a year, no more than that, because we found out that the sneaky part was we had all these taxes to pay, and it was the Furrier district, so taxes were extremely high. Luckily, the landlord, who was Jewish, or the landlords, two brothers and a son, the son was a lawyer, and the two brothers had been through the concentration camps and had the tattoos on their wrists, and they were very happy to see a tattoo guy go. And there was I wasn't going to try and convince them that I was different than their situation. So mutual respect. We left. They were happy. We got out of having to pay such taxes. We moved. That's when I moved back to Church Street. I had been there before for a year or so, 2 years. Moved to Spadina and Adelaide, then moved back to Church Street because I really loved it there. So yeah, we had these drumming circles where people would, we called it Kavandi bearing, which we didn't do so much of, and then ball dancing, which was where you sutured various weights, usually these big bells that were not so heavy, or if you wanted to go for heavier, like lemons or limes were a traditional thing. This is done in India, where they would basically dance themselves into a trance with the aid of these little pulls on the skin. Some people had 20, 30 of these things sewn onto them. Other people had one or two. And then how we did it, anyways, we incorporated the drumming. So I think it was called Toronto Tabla Ensemble. So they had a door across the hallway, just magically there. These magical things happened always, and they were really happy to lend drummers to come over and do the drumming circle for hours and hours. They had a great time. We had a great time, and we would suture people with these weights, and they dance around. And I remember many people, because of the environment we're in and the AIDS crisis epidemic, a lot of people that we knew, and as they got sicker and sicker, and some died. It was awfully common, to some degree, and I mean it's never common, but it was, it happened a lot. So there were a lot of people who, whether they were just friends with someone who passed away, or whether they were a therapist for them. So a lot of people would sort of name one of the weights sewn onto them as that person, and they would dance until their anguish and emotional pain was able to, partly in aid of the endorphins and things, but to some degree let go of some of this pain and emotional distraught energy. And there were some really amazing times. And I feel very, very grateful and blessed that I got to be a part of all that. It was extremely healing, and it's like people embraced it. Like we had such a community of people. Oh my gosh. It was so amazing. But so anyways, these are aspects of the development of soul prints. Was the idea that the body is not separate from the soul, that there is a oneness while we're here. And if you work on the body in the right way, you can reach the soul, and you can mend the soul, or mend the bridge. I should say, I don't think the soul has a damage. I could be wrong, but I don't think the soul could be damaged so much as it's the connection, maybe the bridge between the body. It's so hard to be sure, but there's something there that is great healing potential. And tattooing as well. It was the root of all this. That was my initial pursuit, and then it branched off into these other areas of exploration. So I developed a great reputation around the world. I had